Muhammad Umar Farooq biological video. Please make sure to subscribe, like and share. Ask the question for answer and comment about the artwork. You can also question answer to each other for solving the problem. So today we will discuss about the nervous system. That is the overview of the nervous system. So here I will draw a person which that contain a central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. And here is the peripheral nervous system in the whole body covered. On the other hand, brain and spinal cord is made up of central nervous system which that are present in the center of the body. So here is the brain structure which that is I had drawn. So that is the limbic system are present. That is the limbic system is the limbic system is control, thirst, hunger, and sexual arousal or emotional activity. And so here is the hypothalamus, which that is contained uh, produce the neurosecretory hormone. On the other neurosecretory factors. So here is the pituitary gland, which secrete the different types of hormone, and that is known as master gland. Contain um, adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis and median lobe. So here is the cerebrum, which does contain left and right cerebrum hemisphere, which that is used for the cognition and learning property. So here is the hind brain, which that is made up of cerebellum and pons as well as medulla. So it is midbrain is also contained limbic system. So here I draw the limbic system, the overview. That is here you can watch the structure, and orange color shows that the ventricle. But here we will discuss about the limbic system. So here is the prefrontal cortex, and that is the hypothalamus. Here is the pituitary gland, which that secrete hormone, and hypothalamus and thalamus is also present. Hypothalamus is control the regulation of heat and cold response. On the other hand, here is the hippocampus, which that is used for the thirst response and hunger and pain. So that is here is the thalamus, which they are showing in here, and I will not explain about the hypothalamus and thalamus. And next video we will discuss about the hypothalamus and thalamus. So that is known as here is a brain stem, and that is all is related to the limbic system. So next here we will discuss about the ventricle. That's ventricle. The basically ventricle system is set of communicating cavity which that communicate within brain. These structures are responsible for the production, transport, and removal of cerebrospinal fluid. So that contains cerebrospinal fluid, which the nourishment of the brain and extract the material, etc. So that is the also shock absorber, because fluid filled cavity are present. So that's the lateral ventricle is here, and anterior horn, posterior horn, and inferior horn, which that's contained is here, and that is the going to the stem, ultimately convert into the neural canal, which that are present in the spinal cord. Next diagram we will discuss about here. So that is the here is you can see that is here is the interventricular foramen connects basically, and the other hand is here is the basically interventricular foramen connects basically and brain. So that is the basically is here. And the next is here is you can say that from here, which that is showing that is the third ventricle. So it is the partition of ventricle. So this is the third ventricle, and the upper part is the first ventricle, and we will discuss here. So that is the basically ventricle is very important for the extraction of fluid from the brain and transport the fluid to the brain for normal activity. So that is why the ventricle is important. So here is the median aperture, and here is the lateral aperture. We will discuss with the dorsal view of the brain, you can understand as well. So here is the important thing is the central canal of spinal cord, which that's going into the spinal cord, which convert into the neural canal. So here I will draw a posterior view, basically back side of the, for example, we are standing in the um, like watching this video, and our back side of the brain will show. So here I will draw a back side is the posterior view. So that was the side view, and here we will discuss about the posterior view. And front view I will not draw a front view. So front view we will discuss later. So here you can that you can say that here is a posterior view, which that is the back side of the brain, not front. So the back side of the brain will show the ventricle with a different manner. So here is the cerebellum, and here is the limbic, basically ventricle. So this ventricle show is like that, is the cross section of the brain showing that. So this is the cross section of the brain with a posterior view. When cross section shows that here is the third ventricle, and here is the basically uh, cerebral duct. So here is the anterior horn, and here is the lateral ventricle, which that is showing in the lateral side. So that is why it is known as lateral ventricle. And here is the cerebrum and cerebellum. And this is the lateral aperture, which that was looking in the near to the spinal cord in the side view, side cross section of the brain. So here we will discuss about the ventricular system is set of communicating cavity within brain. So this is the inside of the brain, which that is the central part, and these structure are responsible for the production of something, which that is transport the material ions and some other things, which that is used for the brain, and homeostasis is also used to maintain the brain activity. So that's transport and removal of cerebrospinal fluid. It means the cerebrospinal fluid contain the normalization of the brain function. So that is why it is important. So here I will draw a skull which contain a brain. So this brain is a skull is a primary protecting layer made up of bones, and three layers is made up of dura mater, pia mater, and arachnoid, which is that collectively called a meninges. And these meninges protect the brain after the protection of the skull, which that is bone. So the highly protection of the brain due to the delicate tissue. So the brain is very delicate tissue, and protection is too much high. Uh, More and more, it's protected from the hairs. So the head is made up of hair. So here is the cross section of the brain shows that look like this. This upper side is the border of the brain is contain gray matter, while the inside is known as the white matter. So the here is the cross section which that shows the basically is the cross section, and that shows the lateral ventricle is also remember about that. That previous structure was the complete not cross section. So here is the cross section, and here is the interior tip of lateral ventricle. So the interior tip of the lateral ventricle, which that after the cross section is embedded in here, because we had cut the brain from the center. So here is the aqueduct of midbrain. So the aqueduct of the midbrain is the cerebral aqueduct is going to the downward, and that is the central canal, which ultimately go into in the conversion of neural canal. So here the fourth ventricle is showing in the figure. So corpus luteum is corpus callosum is present in the brain is here. So the corpus callosum is the different part is of the ventricle. So here is the ventricle filled with cerebrospinal fluid. So the ventricle is the filled with the cerebrospinal fluid is remembering about for you. That is why. So the we had learned about the skull protection and the ventricle and limbic system. Here we will discuss about the spinal cord and brain. So the brain is covered here, and next is the spinal cord we will discuss about, and next we will discuss about the sensory and motor pathway. So here is the cervical vertebrae, which that is contain cervical is looking like there. Is the butterfly structure is known as gray matter inside, while the outside for the brain is the border of the brain is contained. So this gray matter is used, white matter is here and gray matter. So this gray matter is used for the thoracic region contain a thoracic vertebrae is the thoracic nerves arise from it, and these thoracic nerves and thoracic spinal cord is less gray matter while the white matter is more. But here is the lumbar region which that is contain gray matter is more, and sacral region is also more, and four vertebrae is contain, and lumbar region contain 5 pair in the form of pair, and thoracic 12, and cervical is 8. So that is the sacral region. So I want to show that I want to say about that things is the gray matter contain a soma cell body of the nerves. On the other hand, the white matter contain axon is mostly, but it's never it's not necessary for nerves are also present in the gray matter. So next is here we will discuss about the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. So here I will draw a brain which contain a gray matter and white matter. So outer border it contain a gray matter, while in the spinal cord into the center, and here is the white matter is inside, while the gray matter is the outside covering by the white matter, and that's gray matter and white matter shown. On the other hand, spinal cord is protected by the white matter outside and gray matter inside, but brain contain a white matter inside and gray matter is outside. So here is the spinal cord which contain nerves which are dorsal and ventral ganglion is contain a nerves which that arise in the same nerves fibers. So here is I draw a line which contain a central nervous system is made up of spinal cord, and here is the outside of the rest of the central nervous system is the peripheral part of the body is the peripheral nervous system. It is known as peripheral nervous system. So that is the dorsal horn of gray matter, and downside is the ventral horn of gray matter. This butterfly structure is in the center is known as neural canal. So here I draw a hand which that contain a sensory neuron which that give the signal toward the gray matter by the from the dorsal horn to go back by the motor neuron to the ventral horn of the gray matter to the ventral nerves, ventral ganglion. So these motor neuron is interconnected to the each other, and that is known as reflex arc, and their hand will be moved by the giving the response of the touch, pain, pressure, and some heat, cold, etc. So these give the response. It is known as the reflex arc. So these can be also go into the brain to the region of the gray matter, and these gray matter will be receive the signal and that's go back toward the giving the response. So this is also known as that is attached by the neuromuscular junction. We will discuss in later in this video. So here is the spinal cord which covering by the dura matter, and the inside of the dura matter is the arachnoid matter, and arachnoid matter inside of the arachnoid matter is known as the pia matter, and these three type of layers is known as meninges is like a brain which that is also covered by the three layers. So a three layer inside is the spinal cord, which contain a peripheral nervous system from the nerves, dorsal and ventral ganglion. And on the other hand, here is the neural canal, which that is come from the um, brain by the it is also give the cerebrospinal fluid. So that is all thing is done is here about the spinal cord, which that is protected by the three layer is known as meninges, is made up of biomatter, arachnoid matter and dura matter, and this layer is protection is, and the upper layer is made up of the bones. And which type of the bone is the vertebral column is made up of vertebrae, and these vertebrae is the flexible uh, into the joint where the joint is occur. So here I draw a neuron structure which that is made of, that is the functional and structure unit of the nervous system contain axon myelinated or unmyelinated on the situation where that is present, and here is that soma is contain a nucleus and some organelles, and there's the dendrites arise from the soma. So here is the synapse will be occur for the chemical conduction of the neuron to give a nerve impulse from one neuron to another. That signal go into either spinal cord or into the brain. So here I draw a new synapse, which that is showing that here is the metabolic enzyme which are metabolite to produce neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter can be different: acetylcholine, dopamine, adrenaline, epinephrine, or some other neurotransmitter which that is the cannabinoid chemical which that is the are present in the marijuana, and on the other hand the nicotine which that is also neurotransmitter, and there's many more. And here is the acetylcholine, dopamine, adrenaline and epinephrine, which that is for example neurotransmitter will bind to the receptor is new acetylcholine receptor, which that is for example acetylcholine receptor bind to give the action potential to the next neuron. How it's possible? Because the next new neuron will be um, 3 sodium 3 sodium come in and 2 potassium ion will come out outcome come out, and these will give a trigger to the next neuron, and that is known as the synapse, and that is the action potential will be generated. After the action potential, acetylcholine will convert into the degradation enzyme to convert choline and acetyl CoA, and this choline will go backward into the neurons both, and again will be converted into the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. For example, I am not discussing about the all neurotransmitter, so here is the acetylcholine is the important for understanding. So these will be acetylcholine transferase enzyme used to bind again. So that is also, and neuron will be attached by the muscles to produce a neuromuscular junction. So here is the neuron and downward is the muscle cell. So the calcium ion will go inside to create the more positive charge inside as compared to the outside of the cytosol. Outside of the intercellular space. So the axon terminal of motor neuron is here, and these synaptic vesicle acetylcholine will be formed, and this S vesicle choline and S vesicle that is choline is here. So that is the synaptic vesicle is here. This synaptic vesicle is formed by the acetylcholine transferase enzyme, and these acetylcholine vesicle will be bind to the calcium ion, and this calcium ion will be allowed to move outside. Why? Because too much inside positive charge which that is go to outside of the neurotransmitter, because neurotransmitter contain also positive charge. So these will be, here is the binding, and here is the binding region, and there's after the binding to increase the action potential by the ATPase pump to ATP used to acetylcholine receptor to use ATP to sodium move inside, and this sodium move inside to create action potential, and these action potential go into the T tubule and further go, and T tubule will receive the more sodium to create the calcium ion release from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So the sarcoplasmic reticulum will release to bind to the troponin of the muscle, to troponin to actin and myosin binding region by the using of ATP to contract the muscle. So that is why it's important, and that's go into the junction, uh, junction of sarcolemma. So here is the channel which that acetylcholine, acetyl-CoA and choline will be backward toward into the neuromuscular junction. Into the knob of the nerves. So these knobs are axon terminal, which backward, and this which that is the S vesicle, which that is synthesis of vesicle, which the choline will be bind with the acetyl-CoA to in the presence of acetyl-CoA transferase enzyme, acetylcholine transferase enzyme to bind again that reaction. So thanks for watching.